everybody. You know who it is. This is Austin, and this is the Austin Smith Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about real estate, and you know we talk about lifestyle. Today's guest, the reason why I brought today's guest on is because I wanted to have an episode that involved investing out of state, and we talk about, acquiring deals, funding. He's a wholesaler out of Philly, and he does an excellent job at sending deals, sending opportunities. And the main reason why I wanted to create this particular episode is because sometimes it might just be too expensive to invest where you currently are. And sometimes you might have to get out of your comfort zone and even out of your state and backyard to find opportunities that are available to you at a lesser entry price per se. So that's what today's guest talks about. That's what we talk about. He is an excellent connect. If you need somebody in Philly, he is an awesome connect. But we'll get a chance to talk about that in a few. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into today's show. Please sign on to austinsmithrealestate.com. You'll get the auto updates sent straight to you, the podcasts, the blogs, the videos, everything out there is right there for you. And if you have benefited by listening to either this episode or any other episode, please log on to iTunes, leave me a rating and review, good or bad. I can take negative, or I would say constructive criticism. Let me know. Let's continue to share this sugar. So, without further ado, let's get into the show. What's going on, everybody? Today on the show, I definitely wanted to bring this individual on. Me and him and one of my other partners have been kind of working together to see what we can do down in Philly. And I know on the previous podcast I was talking about investing out of state, kind of where the numbers make sense if that doesn't work in your local market. And this is going to be the ultimate plug for anybody that's literally looking for awesome deals, out of state market, cheaper price point. Today's guest is literally the plug. And what's kind of killing me, unfortunately, is that these deals are so hot. These deals are so hot that they literally are gone in a matter of hours. And that's how hot these deals are. But if you are ready, you're willing to take the leap, Philly is an awesome market, and today's guest is just going to show you exactly how you can get started. He is similar to me, an investor agent, but he really pounds the pavement with his investor clients on a whole nother level. I mean, he's providing alley-oops day in and day out. But today, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to introduce you to the man, Jimmy O'Connor. Jimmy, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, brother.
Oh, thanks for having me, Austin. Really appreciate this, man.
Absolutely, man. No problem at all. We'll jump right into this. Just, before we get into the expertise, tell me how you got started. Were you always in real estate? Were you doing something before? How did you make that transition? How did you get started?
So, Austin, to shoot you straight, I actually had no idea that I was going to be in real estate growing up. I mean, I grew up always thinking I was going to be a teacher, being a history teacher, being a math teacher, being a science teacher. And I went to school. I studied physics at the College of New Jersey, graduated, moved out to Colorado, taught physics out there for 4 years. And it wasn't until I was kind of missing home, I moved back. And I spent pretty much the entire summer selling solar just to get my feet wet into sales until one of my close friends growing up, approached me about this job that he was doing, which was selling investment properties over in Philadelphia. Now, to me, I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea really what real estate was. I thought I was going to be working a salary job my entire life. And then he really just opened up my eyes to see that there's so much opportunity out here in real estate, and it's exciting. You're going into properties with all these different characters and stories and seeing what is happening to these neighborhoods that are going to be transformed. So as soon as I kind of became privy to that knowledge, I started studying for my license. I got super into it. Within a week or two, I got my real estate license, took the test, started working at this brokerage, and now all I do is sell distressed properties to investors who want to flip them over.
So that's interesting. So, most people, if they're in a particular field, like for example, education, and my wife is in education. She's not a teacher, she's a recruiter. And she invests with me in real estate, part time. And a lot of people are always trying to find out, okay, how can I begin part time? I don't want to leave my job yet, but I kind of want to do this part time. Was there anything that was holding you back from jumping in full time? Like, did you have to watch your partner kind of do a couple of deals and then make you go in full time? Like, what was the mindset of going from being in education to now, which obviously was a salary and a pension and benefits and all this other stuff, to now, sales, commission? How did you make that adjustment mindset wise?
So with this, I thought I was going to be on that salary track my entire life. Teaching is about one of the most secure jobs that you can get. And being a physics teacher, I was essentially able to get a job anywhere, make a good living, have my summers off, get the beach lifeguard, because that's what I used to do growing up at the Jersey Shore. And what really inspired me is the same person I'm talking about. I'm going to reference him a bunch of times probably throughout my history of having success here. His name's Dylan. I saw him struggle. Honestly, he started with a company, and my team was at its grassroots, and he put the time in and really showed the success and what a refined machine would be. So for me, I needed to see a mentor. I need to have someone who has kind of paved the path for me. That way I can know and anticipate what's going to happen. What was really holding me back is just a little bit of just lack of knowledge, because real estate was this thing that I didn't understand. And being this overly analytical person, if I didn't understand it, I wasn't ready to go for it. So really having someone to show me the opportunity, show me what you actually need to know, it's not that hard. And I understand where there's a lot of teachers out there who, they have their 9-to-5 job, and they think, oh, real estate sounds super, super consuming. But I come across investors all the time that this is their part-time job. It's just a husband and wife, or someone who just wants, a rental property on the side to get that passive income. So they're not just referring on that retirement plan that you're talking about.
Interesting. And I'm pretty sure, you mentioned that you were doing solar, which is a great
way.
Yeah,
that was definitely an interesting point in my life right there. You get a baptism by fire in sales going that way. Shout out to anyone out there who's selling solar. It's a grind. I respect you guys, and you have a lot of fortitude to be able to take a lot of doors closed in your face.
I remember in college, I had a friend who was doing solar, and he was making bank on a week in and week out basis, and I was like, all right, screw that, I'm going to go do solar. And it's hated it. I can't sell anything I don't have a passion for. And some people, have that gift of gab where they can really do that. And he wound up moving he moved from New Jersey out to San Francisco selling solar. So, like you said, big ups to anybody that's selling solar, because that is definitely a rejection game business. Any sales job will be, but that particular, I can name off the top of my head 5 times where solar people have called me or contacted me to, get an estimate or everything like that. And it's just like, no, thanks, bro. I'm good.
I'm telling you, man, they have some of the most, fortitude and stamina going out there. Now, for me, too, the reason why I'm honestly, I struggle with solar because I was not a closer. And the thing about going into sales for real estate is I thought I had to be a closer the entire time to have success. But really, so much of this job is just knowing the areas, knowing the market, and being able to convey the value before you even go out to the property.
Right.
So you like real estate, the numbers are there. They don't lie. And being a guy with the background in numbers, this is where I thrive. I surround myself with people that are better closers than me. But going into real estate, you don't need to know, how to sell like Wolf of Wall Street or anything like that.
And that's what most people think sales are. And as long as it's value add, people, or at least the right people can see the value for themselves. So I put it like this: no one wants to be sold, but everybody wants to buy.
Exactly.
Like straight on the nail. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the day-to-day as an investor agent. You're as a wholesaler as well as an individual who works strictly with investors. What's your day-to-day like?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's a great question. And it kind of has two aspects about it, right? Because the entire process of wholesaling could be broken down to, I guess, two legs. The first leg, and to me, probably the most important one, is the acquisition. I mean, you have that cliche that people like to toss out, which is you make your money when you buy, which totally has truth going throughout the entire phrase. But what I try and do is find where those deals are. Now, we live in an age where it's kind of like YouTube University. You know what I mean by that, Austin?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
You can get your whole
Where,
MBA online.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's where wholesaling kind of like got its birth, and that's why everyone can open up a YouTube page and say, oh, look, put no money down, and you can get $10, $20, $30,000 as a return. So you see everyone flocking to the job without actually doing anything to make them stand out. So what I do on a day-to-day basis is, man, I hit the streets. I like being outside, and I'm an active guy. I'm knocking on doors. I'm talking to, that old grandma who's sitting on the stoop who knows all the gossip on the street. My personal favorite, I'm going to, pour out some of my secrets now, is that I like to know postmen. That is my best resource of acquisitions because they're the ones who are handing out the bills. They could point you in the right direction and say, who is a motivated seller? Who's willing to get rid of their property ASAP and, at that discounted price that ends up benefiting my investors. So it could be that, I mean, hitting the streets, talking to people, sending out mailers, the classic thing of a handwritten letter makes the biggest difference in the world. It's not a game about sending email blasts. It's not a game about saying, click here to be a part of my buyer's list.
Right. Right. The a lot of people get stuck on the finding deals part, or they'll start to spin their wheels. You mentioned postmen, which is a very interesting leg. I've heard of that before. I've never really. I did hit up one of my friends when I first started, and I was like, listen, if you find anything, I'll shoot you a couple $100, $1,000, whatever the case. So he started in the beginning, but then that eventually wanes off, and I realized that that's obviously something that I would require over time. But nonetheless, people kind of get stuck on the deal or finding the deals. Hey, there's direct mail, there's cold calling, there's door knocking. If you had to narrow it down to two strategies that are working for you as far as finding deals, what would those two strategies be?
Ooh, all right, let's see here, because I go through pretty much every avenue possible. I still do share sales, pocket listings for sale by owners, all that fun stuff. But in all honesty, the best acquisition source I have is hitting the streets and talking to people. That's hands down number one. They're the people who know the gossip, the people who know who's ready to sell. I'd say it goes talking to people on the streets, developing a relationship, and being kind of that guy walking through the neighborhood where people know if you want to sell, you go to him. So that's one. I know that's multiple parts in a long sentence in one, but that's one. Second one would definitely be direct mail. And that's just a numbers game. You blast a bunch out, and then you hope that something comes back.
Right.
And then, and really the last little bit is just networking, working with some agents, working with some other wholesalers, trying to use that trickle-down effect to figure out who can you partner with, that there's still enough meat on the bone, that the investor's going to win, the seller's able to have their proceeds and move on to whatever stage they want. So, yeah, I'd say those three basic concepts. I mean, it's tried and true, but no one does it consistently. And I think that's the issue that a lot of people run into. They don't practice it consistently.
One of my podcasts, I'm just going to go on a rant about purchasing your next property in the next 90 days, guaranteed. And I think the only thing that stops people, like you said, is just the consistency, the day in and day out, because the consistency is boring, right? And we all like the highlight reel of finding the deal, or we like the highlight reel of actually closing the deal. But it's the day in day out consistency, which can be boring. Obviously, you like what you do, but there's not much excitement in the day to day consistency. But then it obviously does end up turning into the highlight reel when you do land that property, when you do land that next connection that can help grow your business. Perfect example, and we'll move on to just your interactions with your clients as investors. For example, I found you on Bigger Pockets. right?
Correct.
And this all started from me telling myself, okay, I'm going to reach out to 10 investors a day, 10 new investors a day. And you just start off with that. And then your brain says, okay, how am I going to do that? Not sure yet. Let me just start moving. So started with Facebook groups. Oh, I know, meetup.com. Cool. Let me reach out to some people here. Oh, I have some people already in my database. Let me talk to them here. Oh, Bigger Pockets is a big database. Let me reach out to people there. But by the time I actually got in contact with you, and now you're feeding me and my partner deals, by the time that I got to you, I was already hitting 10 contacts a day for the previous 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, ongoing, you know what I'm saying, up and ongoing. And it's only then where eventually, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, how many people have you reached out to in the past 5 weeks? 500. Cool. Awesome. Out of those 500, you'll find that now out of those, say 20, 25 of them, 50, you can now add to your database because they now have proved themselves to be reliable resources, and you happen to be that one. But it was just the day in and day out of, I'm going to find new people to help me and, expand my business. So that, perfect example right there. And switching gears now.
Actually, before we switch gears,
yep.
man, I could speak directly to that. I mean, I like to relate either be it cold calling, it could be mailers, it could be messaging people on Bigger Pockets, because I literally do the exact same thing. I just look for qualified buyers, qualified sellers to help my network out on Bigger Pockets. It's such a great pre-vetting source. I love that website. But I like to think of any of that stuff almost like you're on this journey, right? And your goal is to get to this treasure chest at the end of it. And along the way, you're getting, little rewards. I'd like to think of maybe it's mini treasure chests. Sometimes you can get one, and then right after it, you get another and another. Other times you can get one, and then you can go miles and miles and miles without having anything. And all of a sudden it can be back to back. What a lot of people get stuck on and why they give up on that grind is because they might get one, and then as soon as they hit the dry streak, they think that it's stopped working. What a lot of people lack the maturity to do is really zoom out. When you zoom out at the big picture and you realize if you put just even a couple months of consistency in there and you get maybe 3 or 4 whales either on the buy side or the sales side, it's going to benefit you for years. You zoom out even further, you're going to have those repeat relationships of good qualified contacts that you're not going to think about, that 8 hours that you put in one day, just picking up and putting down your phone, trying to find different acquisition sources. So it's always reminding yourself, zoom out. There's a greater purpose to this. There's a greater purpose to the consistency. It's there. You just got to find it.
I love that analogy. And, just play the numbers. Like you said, if you told anyone, hey, listen, if you do this all year, if you do this one thing, I don't care if it's 10 contacts, if you do this all year, you'll do 10 deals with an average profit of $10,000. And everybody's like, all right, cool. Now, the issue is that I didn't tell you when that was going to happen. That can happen.
That's exactly it.
That could happen. You can be doing this all year, and then you'll hit all 10 in November. Or you'll split it. You'll do 5 in June, 5 in October. Or you might do 1 a month except for 2 months. Or, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many variations, but it's the input that you have to focus on, not necessarily the output. And when you put the proper input in, you'll get the output that's desired.
That was definitely the scariest leap going from teaching into a job like this. I mean, I was on something where I was getting paid throughout the summer months, and I had consistent, like $2,000 to $4,000 a month paycheck. Like, okay, it is at the end of the month. I'm receiving my paycheck now. Right. And then you go into a commission job, and it can be scary for a lot of people. All right, because now you don't have that consistency. What if you have a bad month? But the idea is if you have enough of your routine and your work ethic, you don't have a bad month. You have okay months, good months, fantastic months.
Right. Awesome. Let's talk about, you've talked about acquisitions. Now talk about, the relationship or your interaction with your investor clients and kind of what they're doing to close the deal. Like, you're bringing this, walk us through the process of you bringing a deal to an investor and then how they're closing these deals.
Okay, so the way that my business model works and the way that I've seen a lot of success with me and my teammates is that it's all about setting clear expectations. All right, an issue that I have, and the reason why there's a stigma against a lot of wholesalers, I'm going to throw it right out there. There's a stigma against a lot of wholesalers because it's just an email blast routine where they don't develop the same personal relationships, and you end up wasting each other's times. So what I do is as soon as I find a potential investor, we sit down at my brokerage, we have a 20-minute meeting, and the entire function of that meeting is to show exactly how my process works from the get-go all the way to them going to closing. And more importantly for me to learn how they view deals. Because everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be understood. So what they are looking for is for you to understand how they evaluate deals. When I look at a deal, I have to put on a different set of glasses per investor, be it a rental investor, a flip investor, someone who does BRRRR versus someone who does buy and hold with no refi on it. So I kind of rein it in is I get in contact with them. We sit down for the meeting. I show them exactly how I do my high frequency of properties, and that's just by pulling legitimate comps. That's by showing that whatever you're inputting into it, you're having a good probability of getting exported. So say you're only pulling comps from 0.1 miles away. You're not crossing over any major highways, which for a guy in Philly, and you're up closer to like Newark area, right? Like North Jersey?
Correct.
Yeah. So you go one street, it's a short sprint into a place that maybe not, is maybe not as happy. So it's really kind of keeping it as tight as possible with that relevant comps, maybe 20% of the square footage, and really sticking to that criteria. That way, when you present the deal to my investor, right, they know that it's quality. They know that a lot of the research and the legwork has been done with them.
You mentioned the BRRRR strategy, and can you
Yeah.
just quickly elaborate exactly what that is?
Okay, yeah. So
listeners?
that really got made famous by Bigger Pockets. So that's to
Yeah,
buy,
for sure.
rehab, refinance, repeat. And why you're seeing that kind of come to light, and a lot of people, especially in their 20s and 30s as newer investors, are looking to get into it, is because it allows you to pull your money out. So what they do is they purchase a property. They could be using hard money, they could be using cash, whichever one makes them happy. They rehab it to get that higher ARV or after repair value for any of the listeners out there who aren't as privy to all these real estate acronyms. I know it can be overwhelming. And then once they rehab it, they have a refinance. So they'll go to a bank, get a conventional mortgage to overlay and kind of get all their money back. So most banks will give you about 75 to 80% of what the new value of the house is. So ideally, you find a location where you're right between where all the rental properties are and right near really, really hot neighborhoods. So say in Philadelphia, if we're talking market specific, a pocket of West Philly, right between Cobbs Creek and University City, it's called Cedar Park. That's actually feeling both the expansion and the rebuild going from University City. So you're getting a lot of that hot, quick turnover, high value properties. Yet you have that easier point of entry coming from Cobbs Creek, which you see about like 50% of the population being rentals. So you get that low barrier of entry with that high refi value. That way you can pull your money out while still having a good rental market on top of it. I know that's a lot of information. Do we need to break it down?
Nope, we're good to go. Because like you said, I mean, this what we're explaining isn't new. I just wanted you to break it down, right there. You can Google it, but it's nothing extravagant. It's just a particular strategy. There was two things that you mentioned. And for the record, for everyone who's listening, like, Jimmy isn't lying, and he isn't lying about specifically two things. One, he literally does sit down with all of his investors, because me and my partner drove out to Philly to meet him. We had the same conversation, sat down, got an idea of what we were looking for, the goals that we were looking to achieve, and now Jimmy is sending us properties that match that particular criteria. It's hard as hell, which we'll talk about the Philly market as in a second, because that's how fast these properties are moving. So he didn't lie about that. And the second thing he lied about was the fact that wholesalers, they really don't work on building their relationship. They just send out an email blast. And I think, the funniest thing, right? So I have a wholesale deal that I just found out about an hour and a half ago that we're going to be looking to close on Friday, which is awesome. So
congratulations.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it. And this deal was at one point in time, right? Got the deal under contract. I start marketing it. It has an offer on it already, right? So we're already locked in. I get an email, because we're all part of the email list. I get an email from another investor like, hey, we have 76 North 16th Street available for sale. And I'm like, dude, first off, Are you in, and I never like to put them on blast. I like to act like
Yeah,
as if I'm a buyer, and I go out to
yeah,
the and I'm like, oh, okay, so you have it under contract, and you're in contact with the seller, right? And just to see what they say, and then I'm like, all right, I would like to put an offer on it, and just to see how far I can go. And at that point, I just wind up finally telling them, like, listen, just don't market it, bro. It's my property. It's already under contract. We're already going through the process. Like, don't do that. And then,
yeah.
it's always like, oh, my bad, bro. I didn't mean that, And it's like, yes, you did. You know what you're doing. So it's just watch wholesalers. The wholesalers, for example, like myself or like Jimmy, who are actually spending the time to learn exactly what you're looking for and building that rapport and building that relationship are the type of wholesalers that you want to actually come in contact with. Because if not, then you're just going to get a bunch of recycled properties on a list, and most of the times the numbers don't make sense. The purchase price and the ARV make sense, but for whatever reason they come up with a 50K repair budget. You
That's
go out there
that's
and
a
it's a
real big
hundred.
thing I like to hit on too. That's a real big thing I like to hit on. So that's one of my favorite things about technology nowadays is that purchase price and ARV can all be done comfortably from behind your computer. And the only reason why you should ever go out to a property is to either check out the neighborhood or go in there to actually confirm the rehab budget. So I'm straight with you, man. I don't swing a hammer. I have no idea what the cost for some of these properties are going to be. I know general things. I know, general prices for flooring or say condenser or something generic like that. But I mean, you bring a contractor in there, 10 different contractors, you get 10 different bids. So the last thing I'm going to do, though, it's easy to tell, is this thing having a roof that's falling all the way down? Are there some joists that look like they're, more of a U than a straight line across? But yeah, man, we live in a world where you have overinflated ARVs, underestimated rehab budgets, just because an area is selling. They think that they could, take all the meat off the bone and leave nothing for the investor and the end user. And that's really something you want to avoid because you're not going to get your repeat customers doing that, either on the acquisition or the sales side.
Right, and then there's one thing where you have never seen the property, don't know, not familiar, and then there's another thing where you're like, okay, well, listen, here's what I can tell you. I just sold maybe about 4 or 5 of these properties to investors over the course of the past 4 or 5 months, and based off of those estimates, you're probably looking around the $75,000 range. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's a different. You're coming across a lot differently than the ARV is 50. Or the repairs are 50,000. And it's like,
Yeah.
have you seen it? And they're like, no. And it's just like, well, how do you So that was always my issue. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
The last part of the interaction, as far as like the pitching these deals to your investors. How are you finding that most of these people are funding their transaction? Are these all cash buyers? Are there individuals that are using hard money? Where are you seeing?
So you definitely get a mixture of all of them. I mean, as a sales guy, everyone always says ideally cash just because there's less hassle that goes into it. Hard money, I think, is a great tool. You just got to make sure that you're using the right lender. I mean, I spend a lot of my time meeting with lenders to assist my clients, but you got to make sure that A, their rates aren't crazy. B, their draw fees aren't crazy. C, you need to know exactly what kind of inspection they need, appraisal they need, how long they're going to be able to close. Because I've seen some deals kind of fall through because the close date's coming around and the lender's not ready. So it's really being able to kind of filter those out. Now you have private lenders too. So say if you are representing, like you're doing it yourself, and then you have a rich guy, a rich uncle, rich cousin, or someone who really believes in you what to do, and they just want to take like a little equity stake out of the end. That's something I've seen be a legitimate thing. But yeah, it's all different resources. Typically with a lot of wholesale deals though, for the closing and how quickly these closings do happen, conventional financing usually takes a little bit too long, especially if you're doing that construction funding. But yeah, I mean, I've successfully worked with maybe, 3 or 4 different loan, be it hard money or private lending companies.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome. Now let's talk about Philly as a market.
Sure.
It's headline news. Obviously, any place that you start to experience that gentrification or that migration of the city itself into the surrounding areas and job opportunities, growth, the whole kit and caboodle. Talk to us, like what's the fundamental drive behind Philly
Ooh.
as a market?
I love this question. I absolutely love this question. So, like any kind of broad conceptual question like this, there's obviously multiple answers, but I like to think about people migrations and the generations that are moving into these cities. So, New York, probably one of the bigger influences for Philadelphia is actually New York. So you're up by there, New York, you get killed as far as your barrier of entry. I mean, it is really hard to get a closet up there that doesn't, rake you through the coals.
For sure.
So what we're seeing a lot of people do is either they're trying to rent and they're, that millennial age, they want to experience that metropolitan life without having to pay, $2,000 a month for sharing a 400 square foot apartment. They're moving down here, and I actually see people commuting from Philadelphia to New York every day.
Really?
So you have, you have that draw of people who want to live in that metropolitan kind of area, but don't want to pay those expenses. That's one. Two, the city actually has had a lot of initiatives to kind of jumpstart that development process. I mean, I know in West Philly, University City is something that popped up when Drexel and University of Penn, they want to kind of stimulate that growth in that area. So they started putting a $2.5 billion project to take that area and move it westward, so towards Cobbs Creek. And this is the area where, Will Smith was coined to being famous, West Philadelphia for Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Yeah, no, but now you're seeing all this development going over there. You have a $50 million facility happening at 59th and Market, which anyone who knows that area, that used to not be a great area, but people are investing here. It's a cheaper point of entry, and it's not as bad as taxes as it is in New Jersey, which is right across the bridge. So investors are seeing it kind of a safe haven, especially a lot of New York investors that are coming down here and seeing what might be spread over one or two properties up in New York, might be able to get them 3, 4, or 5 down here.
I think, it's interesting because when me and my partner were kind of reviewing numbers, and we kind of took the same methodology, which led us up to you, and we were like, wow, okay, up here we can probably get into a deal for maybe about 50, 60K on average or so. And then, down in any market, but we were looking at down South Jersey where the price points are cheaper, but you're not experiencing that metropolitan, kind of feel, which you can kind of bank on that over time. The metropolitan areas are going to do nothing but go up, in the long run. And as a result, and as the human population continues to increase, more people are going to be moving to the city. And then once the city gets expensive, the overflow outside of the city will continue to happen, which is what we're experiencing up in Newark, East Orange, is the overflow, especially Jersey City, Hoboken.
Man, as a Jersey boy, I love to hear that those places are starting to feel growth. I love to hear that. I mean, I was born and raised in South Jersey, but I love knowing that these places that were once, not the nicest areas to be in are starting to see that growth and actual investment and commerce going back into it.
For sure, and they're ripe. They're real ripe for opportunity. And the crazy part is that they haven't even hit their threshold. I mean, similar to Philly, obviously, they haven't even begun, to really hit that pinnacle of real estate investing. There's people there will still chase down deals without a problem, and even as prices have risen in the past 2-3 years, and they're still hungry for more and more deals. And I just think that it's interesting that, first, I think that it's interesting that you are seeing a lot of New York investors, one, and then commuters, number two. I honestly wouldn't have thought as much. I mean, obviously, sure, you'll have your 1 or 2, 3, transplants, but it seems like you're really seeing a wave of commuters and professionals that are willing to commute into New York from Philly to be able to get a cheaper option but still be in that metropolitan area.
Man, it's nuts. Honestly, as a guy who lives in Philly and works in Philly, I don't know how they do it, but they do it.
They just get it done. Okay,
they just get it done. That's exactly it.
As we kind of start our descent, for the investors that you are seeing that are doing these deals, Because I know your team and your office, you're pushing out maybe about what 30 to 40 deals a month to
Yeah,
investors.
I say on average that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously you have your slower months towards the winter. You have your faster months, especially when spring season starts to approach and everyone wants a quick cosmetic that they can get in and out and list in that prime time. But yeah, it varies like right around that number. So it's just high frequency.
Okay, so what are you seeing are the successful traits of your, either your go-to investors or people that you just happen to see their name often and you're like, wow, they're really picking off a lot of deals.
Yeah.
What do you see as the character trait or the habits of the successful investors?
It's real simple, Austin. They know what they want, so
Mm,
that way when it's presented to them, they can hop right on it.
mm,
So one of the biggest things that I deal with investors who either aren't experienced or go for more of that emotional feel going to buying an investment property is they don't have their set purchase price, rehab, ARV, or a range of what kind of return they want.
mm,
Really,
mm,
this is a numbers game. This is why I personally enjoy it. And this is finding out what's your input, what's your output, what needs to happen in the middle. So the most successful investors that I have, and I work with people who are great and they buy like a property per day, not from, I mean, ideally for me, but they work for development companies that buy, a property per day. And then I work with some husband and wives that are equally as good because they know exactly what their criteria is and they
mm.
know what they can handle and they communicate that more importantly than anything else. That way I'm able to filter it. I'm able to streamline that process. So that way when they see this deal in front of them, they're able to stop what they're doing, see if it checks out, and then move on it within a reasonable time frame. And that's really how we get that high frequency. We take low assignment fees. I'm not calling people out for $50, $60, $70,000 for an assignment fee. And when I communicate with them, we're speaking the same language.
Mm.
So again, to reel it back in, it goes into knowing your criteria and communicating. Every single time that I send a deal, and I do this with you too, and you're great about it. You show me your performance. You show me why the deal doesn't work for you at that given time. You give me a good breakdown. That information, if you're working with a wholesaler, if you're working for an agent, a bird dog, whoever, that information is so ridiculously important to be able to streamline the process to get you that home run that you want. So many people think that they're keeping this giant secret, like they don't want to show you their spreadsheet because they might have a different evaluation for how much a window costs or something like that. And in all reality, if you share that information with the person who's looking for you, it only helps the process.
Right. I mean, clarity, is power, and just like you said, like it's when deals are coming through, and I'm having honest conversation with anybody that sends me deals, and I run the numbers, I double check them, triple check them, and I say, okay, maybe I'm missing something. I send that over, to whoever sent me the deal, and it's like, hey, listen, am I missing anything? Are my closing costs wrong? Or, am I missing anything? And it's just like, no, you're not missing anything. It's just that for this particular deal and with this particular
Sometimes it just
terms,
doesn't work.
it just doesn't work.
Sometimes it just doesn't
It
work,
just
man.
doesn't
I
work.
mean,
But that's
yeah, yeah.
that's what you're playing your numbers. That's what your if your goal is like, okay, I got to submit 10 offers a week. At least it gets you into action of reviewing, making sure, and just at that point, if it's like, hey, listen, Jimmy, I mean, we would have to, the asking price might be at 120. And so it's like, the only way we could do this, I mean, based off of these numbers per se, we might have to do it
Yeah.
at like 105. Does that work? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and then it's on to the next one. I am still feeling some type of way about that one deal. I think that was in Delaware County. And it was spot on. We reviewed the numbers, and it's just like things just go that quick, and before you can get a contractor out there to go check it, obviously in this game of investing, everything is about speed, and of course when you're kind of investing out of state, it might take you a little extra time to do that due diligence period.
Yeah.
But that's why, like you said, like that's why it's so important to have that initial conversation, only because at that point you want to be able to literally give the alley-oop so then your investor can dunk it.
Look, it's all about eliminating steps, Austin. That's the name of the game. Really,
Right.
any kind of time delay. You figure, I've lost some deals where I was with the investor. Actually, this happened, I think, about a week and a half ago. So I was the first one out to the property, right? And I was with the rest of my team. We all go over there after the same properties. But I rush out to the property, right? I get my investor there, and we're loving the property. We like it. We go back to the car, and for the viewers out there, so that they can catch up with what I do, I work with the rest of my sales team. We all work on the same property at the same time to get it moved. So we're all talking to our investors, calling the exclusive list of people who did exactly what Austin did, came in, told the criteria, because those are the people that mean business.
Right.
So we get the property. I get out there first. This guy, he goes in, he comes out, he's a contractor. He said, great, I love it. We signed the contract, but he thought that he could send the down payment through his phone. Turns out that he couldn't. So we waited at the car for customer service to answer for about 10 minutes. Meanwhile, the rest of the teams are getting out there with their investors, getting in there. And then we say, well, that's not going to work. We have to go from our laptop. So we rush out of the neighborhood, start making our way to a public library. I get caught behind a bus that's moving about 10 to 15 miles per hour on the way to the public library. And sure enough, I look at the group message between me and the rest of the team, and it says, this property's sold. And I'm just like, oh my God, not again. But you see, all that kind of stuff could get eliminated by, say, either having money in escrow. That could be one sample, or having the check before you go to the property, so you don't have to go to a bank. You don't have to worry about wiring your money. These are all these little steps that people don't consider. That could be that little hair or that inch that really gets you that victory in that home run property that you want.
It's the preparation, and they're the successful investors, they're just prepared, and that's what we like to pride ourselves on, and just kind of trying to stay as many steps ahead, as physically possible. I mean, obviously, for people that are investing in their backyard, that's a lot easier than when you're stepping out of state, no problem. But don't let that deter you. And it's more so about finding out, okay, what can I do to eliminate step, 3 and 4? So I just have to worry about, point A and point Z, and pull the trigger. So yeah, that spot on. As we start our descent, we're going to go into the core 4, which are the 4 questions that I ask each and every guest on the Austin Smith Real Estate Podcast.
All right, bring it on.
Question number 1. What is your favorite aspect about real estate?
Oh, my favorite aspect is really easy. It's like the stock market, but you can touch it. That's really what it comes down to. It's not some obscure thing. You are investing into places where people live. They each have history behind it. You can see transformations of communities. I mean, I taught for 4 years at a low-income Title I public school. I mean, I saw what really beaten down communities were like, and what it started to show when you had commerce going here. I mean, my office is located in Northern Liberties in Philadelphia. 10 years ago, Northern Liberties was not a safe place to be in. Now you're walking around and you see these beautiful 3-story apartment complexes with roof decks on them. You are changing crime rates. You are changing you're adding to the culture itself and really breathing life into a place that would otherwise have boarded up properties. I mean, you can get really romantic about this stuff, but it's not just nails and wood. These are things that deal with people, and I love people.
Love it, man. Question number 2. What is your favorite business or personal development book?
Oh, okay. That's really, really easy. It's actually stuck between 2 of the most gospel ones. I guess 3.
No Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Number 1. Yeah. So I would say How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think I've read that one about 3 different times.
Interesting. By Dale Carnegie.
Really between these 3. Yeah, exactly. That one's great. It's Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a classic one. It's cliche to say those 2 things, but I'll say it. They're classics for a reason. And then this is one that not everybody knows, but the book is called What Everybody Is Saying. It's actually a book about reading body language, which is a really underutilized skill. You could be the smoothest talker in the world, but if you're not able to read your investor when you're pushing too hard or when you should push a little bit harder, just based on these telltale signs, then you're missing out, because body language doesn't lie. So I think that's one of the most underutilized things by a lot of sales guys is researching body language. And this book is great. I mean, it was written by an FBI agent who would do this for a living.
Is that the same one that wrote Never Split the Difference? It's a book on like negotiating, and it's just like just being that bulletproof negotiator. I don't know if it is though.
I don't think that they're the same one. The guy who wrote this one is Joe Navarro.
Oh, okay, no, I don't think that's the same one.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Question number 3: when you're not out slinging deals for your investors, when you're not putting meat on the bones for your clients, what are you doing in your spare time?
Oh man! First off, I have a dog, so obviously that takes up a big part of my time. I'm a big workoutaholic. I mean, I love being active. When I was in Colorado, it was great because I was hiking, I was snowboarding, I was ice climbing as often as I could. Right around here in Philly, maybe hitting the gym, going on runs, playing basketball. The culture for basketball over here is way better than it was over in Colorado, I can tell you that. But yeah, it's really just staying fit, and that helps keep my mind sharp as well. So like going to yoga, anything to make me feel more energetic without needing any additional supplement to keep me going throughout the day.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. And last but not least, Jimmy, where can people find you at?
Well, you got a couple different ways. The easiest way to get a hold of me, because I do think that this is a phone business, is my number. And hey, I'll give it out. It's 609-513-1163. I pick up the phone almost any given time of the day. You can hit me up on my email, which is jimmy.o'connor@newwestern.com. Or you can look me up on Bigger Pockets, which is www.biggerpockets/users/ I believe it to be Jimmy Finds Flips. I think that's my tag.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Love it, man.
Yeah.
Are you on Instagram, Facebook, anything?
Yes, yeah, I'm on Instagram. You can look me up at JimmyOC, JIMIOC. And feel free to add me as a friend or message me if you have any questions. Just look me up. It's Jimmy O'Connor. If you see it for under Philadelphia, then that's probably me.
Awesome. I'm going to put everything in the show notes, but this is an invitation. If anybody's looking, if your market is too expensive, if you're an experienced investor, I would definitely say experienced. If your market's too expensive, if you're looking for other opportunities, if you've kept hearing that Philly is definitely a market on the rise, Jimmy is your point person. I
appreciate that also.
That is the entryway, and I'm pretty sure that obviously Jimmy's web of spirit influence can extend miles, but it'll start right off the podcast, right with Jimmy, and I'm pretty sure if Jimmy can't get it done, then you're gonna have to do some searching. Just be prepared, as the disclaimer. Just be prepared. Know what you want, have that clarity, go after it. Jimmy will provide that for you. Without a doubt. I'm waiting on the next one that just screams from the heavens, and we'll get right into it.
Trust me, Austin, I'm trying to get a head start on you on every deal that I have.
They move quick, man, and I appreciate the patience on working with me and my partner. Considering the fact that we knew things were gonna move, but we had no idea that things were gonna move that quick. That is real quick. And I understand why. I mean, these are properties in a hot market where the individuals and the investors that know what they want, they can go right after it. And as long as you're prepared, you'll be able to do the exact same. Jimmy, thank you so much.
And for all the users out there, you don't need to have a huge wallet in your back. I work with husband and wives. I work with kids fresh out of college who happen to save up a little bit. As long as you know what you want, and as long as you're willing to go see the property, or at least be ready to make a decision real quick, then I can provide you any inventory that you want.
Awesome. Jimmy, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today, brother. I'm pretty sure the guests got a lot of gold that they can implement, start right away, and they definitely met a brand new connection that can help expand their business, no matter where they are in the country. And thank you for providing that value for today, man.
Absolutely, Austin. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. We'll be talking soon.
For sure, man.